Welcome, everyone. I don't know whether to say good morning or good afternoon, but I'm thrilled you're here. Welcome to the 50th anniversary Miami University Student Foundation Celebration Brunch. I'm Brad Trucksis, class of 75, and along with my co-chair, Lindsay Stewart. Lindsay, how about a wave? Here you go. And all the members of our 50th Reunion Committee, we are thrilled that you're here. Thank you so much for traveling to Oxford to attend this event. It wouldn't be anything without you, and we hope we're going to have a lot of fun together. I think the fact that you're all here after 50 years and we have something to celebrate this significant, everybody deserves a round of applause. There are 4 things that we'd like to accomplish. We can't accomplish it without you. The first thing is we want you to have some fun. Realize that for some of you, you haven't been back for 50 years, or 40, or 30, or 20, or you haven't seen these friends that you're congregating and taking pictures with in that same time frame. So whether you've been gone 50 years or whether you just graduated a year ago, we want to make certain that this is a time to rekindle those relationships, meet some new friends, realize what a blessing and a gift MUSF has been, Miami has been. And to start this off, Lindsay is going to help everybody have a quick trip down memory lane with some MUSF trivia. We're going to have some prizes, and it's going to be awarded by table. So, start boning up. You'll enjoy the prizes, I promise you. We also, and no, you can't go up and look at the pictures on the wall where we're getting ready here. Also, we want to focus on MUSF's past, present, and future. And the first question that we receive from everyone is, well, what happened to MUSF since I graduated? And so, while team's done a wonderful job putting together vignettes by decade, we've got 70s, 80s, 90s, 10s, and 20s over there. Please avail yourself. You're going to see a lot of people you know, including yourselves. It'll take you back to some great times. But we also want to make certain that we are able to focus on how this all began. And Amy Cartwright Rile's class of 91 has done a marvelous job. Amy? She's become our de facto archivist, the historian, and she now knows more about MUSF than most of us. She's going to forget more about MUSF than most of us are going to remember. And she's done a wonderful job putting together all the data for these pictures. And she's going to give you a brief history on how it all started. And then we're going to jump forward 50 years. And Caroline Rowell, where's Caroline? Hi, Caroline. Okay. Caroline, she is the 2024 executive chair of MUSF. And she has just had a week of experience for her, in the first time in her life, adulting. So you need to give her credit. She's been in Alexandria, Virginia. She's experienced the metro. She is working very hard and realizing that life starts a little earlier than perhaps normally at Miami, than she does at Miami. And she's going to give an overview of MUSF today, as well as the exciting plans for the future. Then, we want to recognize the impact that MUSF has had on Miami students, whether they are still here or whether they've gone on and graduated, who have been the recipients of the scholarships. So our MUSF advisor, Sarah Franklin. Sarah? Yep. Sarah's going to provide an inspiring snapshot of what some of the current students who are the recipients of the scholarships are doing today on campus. And then she's going to fast forward and look at what some adults who were the recipients of the scholarship, how they are now spending their lives and livelihoods. And it's, as you would imagine, it's impressive. And then last and most important, we want to recognize and celebrate those individuals who were integral to the creation and the foundation and the implementation of MUSF, such that we're here 50 years later and able to celebrate it. People who started with a blank sheet of paper and knew that they focused on creating a framework that would enable them to pay forward something that no one could envision at the time of what it could look like, but that would will outlive all of us in a way that continues to contribute to generations going forward. And these are the individuals, the special ones, we want to make certain that we recognize today. So get us off, started on the right foot, having some fun, celebrating some awards and some Miami trivia, MUSF trivia. Lindsay, why don't you come down here and get folks started? Lindsay Stewart. Have fun.
Awesome, thank you, Brad. Today we have the honor to celebrate MUSF in the 50 years that we've had with this organization. We have around the room with us MUSF from many decades. Hopefully over brunch you've all been able to reconnect and reminisce on all the wonderful memories and the impact that MUSF has had in your experience. To get a feel for the room and the different wonderful experiences that we've shared through the decades, please raise your hand if you hosted in a president's box, an athletic director's box, or at the president's house. Lots of decades. Raise your hand if you gave a campus tour. Very nice. Raise your hand if you put on games people play. Nice. Raise your hand if you hosted at a freshman or Miami mixer in your hometown. That's a good group. Raise your hand if you helped with the 2020 bike race. Love it. That's a big crowd. Raise your hand if you sold a Chicago bus trip ticket. Nice. Raise your hand if you were involved with the externship program. Nice. The 80s. Raise your hand if you worked with the MAPS or I on alumni program. Very nice. Raise your hand if you put on the family weekend auction and brunch. Love it. Back in the back. Raise your hand if you helped with homecoming house decorating contest. Very nice. Raise your hand if you handed out the M book. Raise your hand if you volunteered at Sports Fest. Raise your hand if you coordinated senior week. Few. Raise your hand if you called alumni during phone-a-thon. I love it. Raise your hand if you participated in leadership seminar. Raise your hand if you passed out Miami merger Hershey Kisses or chapsticks for Valentine's Day. Love it. Raise your hand if you participated in the MU Thank You campaign. In the back. Raise your hand if you served on a steering committee. Love it. Lots of the room. Raise your hand if you were director of MUSF. Very nice. And raise your hand if you are a Miami or MUSF merger. Awesome. So as you can see, MUSF has evolved with its events over the years, but kept its strong foundation of helping students past, present, and future with all of its events. Now, before we get into the history of MUSF, we have a few quick trivia questions, and I think Wes and Jillian, two MUSF students, thank you, are gonna help run around with microphones here. Perfect. Awesome, so how this is gonna work is I'm gonna ask a question, and if your table knows it, raise your hand, and Jillian and Wes are gonna go to the first person that raises their hand for that table. If you win, you'll get a moose munch, and the winning table that gets at least 2 questions right will also get socks. All right, moose socks, moose socks. Okay, so here's the first one. What was MUSF's first student event? Jillian's coming to you.
$20 bike race?
No, not the 2020 bike race. Good try.
Red carpet.
You got it. That's right. Moose munch in the back. Red carpet day. Yep. All right, question number 2. Where was MUSF's first headquarters? Toughies, yes, you got it. Got the new sponge coming. All right, question number 3. What was the first year of the 2020 bike race?
April 74.
1974, you got it. That's awesome. All right, question number 4. Where was the 2020 bike race first held?
Miami Field.
Yes, Miami Field. That's 2 for that table. All right, last question. What year did the bike race come back to Miami?
(2021)
You got it, 2021. Awesome. So the table in the middle here got 2 correct? Perfect, so you guys will get the socks too. Awesome. Well, thank you all for playing a quick trivia. Thank you, Wes and Jillian, for running around for us. And at this time, I would like to bring up Amy Rile, class of 91, to the podium. Thank you.
Wow, is this not the best grade com you've ever been to? This is so fun. I'm having the time of my life, and we're just getting started. So, some of you know that I'm a bit of a history and data nerd, and I've spent a little bit of time digging through the MUSF history over the past 50 years. And so, part of that digging took me to the 1974 Recensio, where I learned that there are actually very few student organizations still around that existed in 1974. So that got me to thinking, what is it that has given MUSF its staying power? And so I think to understand that question, we have to take a little bit of a journey back in time to the 1970s. I know you all will know this very well. There was a very pivotal moment in Miami's history. We had the anti-Vietnam War activism that was active on campuses around the country, including at Miami. And we had, you've probably heard stories or maybe experienced, the takeover of Miami's ROTC building, which led to a huge police presence and student arrests. We all know about the flush-in that drained the Oxford Water Tower. And Miami students were really asking for a lot more campus freedoms, including increased visitation rights. And the Kent State shootings were still a very vivid memory in the minds of many, and Miami, far from immune, had witnessed its share of sleepless nights with sit-ins, shutouts, flush-ins, shutdowns. I think it's fair to say that there was a real us versus them feeling between students and the university at that time. So I think it's really important to understand that, because it is in that environment that Doug Wilson, he was director of alumni affairs at the time. He conceived this bold idea in 1972 for a platform that would create a constructive student involvement and cultivate future alumni leaders. So he wanted to turn this us versus them into a we, and a place where students and administrators really work together. So they did that for the good of the student body and for the good of the university. So bringing Doug's vision to life in this environment was no small feat. And the responsibility fell on the shoulders of Bruce Henke. And Bruce was the graduate assistant in the Office of Development and Alumni Affairs at the time. And he very smartly surrounded himself with 4 seniors who had already demonstrated significant campus involvement. You'll hear a little bit more about that later. And that was Todd Bailey, Connie Casey Green, Marty Luers Villegas, and Barbara Lucky Loudon. and you'll hear more about them a little bit too. So I think it's important to notice that MUSF started from a foundation and place of strength. And these founding five, as we've sort of begun calling them, already knew what the student body needed, and they understood Miami's strengths and weaknesses, and they knew how to get things done on campus, which I know everyone in this room knows how to do. So Bruce and the team went to work laying the foundation for MUSF, a student organization that would be a positive force for the university, where students in the university would work together to create a better Miami, and a group of students that would work for students. You all know that very well. They recognized three pressing needs at the time, and I want you to note these because I think they're interesting. First and foremost, the need for increased scholarship and student aid. Secondly, the need for unity among the student population. And finally, the need to engage the entire academic community, including alumni, in the challenges that we're facing higher education. So 2 keys to MUSF's success were identified early on: the need for an administrative director and the need for operational funds. Mike Macechko was Assistant Director of Alumni Affairs at the time, and he was appointed as the first MUSF director with a charge to be actively involved in the life and decisions of MUSF. More than a hands-off advisor, which was very common at the time and I think probably still is today, Mike was deeply involved in shepherding the vision for MUSF and developing future alumni leaders. So funding was then secured through the Alumni Association with the understanding that MUSF events would be self-sustaining within 3 years. So with a clear vision, a dedicated team, financial support, MUSF began to take shape. So the founding team was committed to diversity and inclusivity from the very beginning. They aimed for equal representation of men and women, Greeks and independents, and the 24 initial steering committee members were hand-selected from candidates that were personally recommended by the founding team and university administrators. So these 24 first MUSFers were assigned to 9 standing committees, and Tom Anthony led the charge as the first executive chair. And with all of that, in September of 1973, MUSF officially launched on campus, guided by the credo of students helping students. I know you all could recite that. And they had a commitment to enhancing the well-being of Miami and a focus on excellence and a commitment to service. So what has given MUSF its staying power? Visionary founders, experienced leaders with a commitment to service and excellence, a symbiotic relationship with the Alumni Association, and a focus on needs that, frankly, haven't changed much in 50 years. Scholarship, unity, engagement of the entire academic community, including alumni. So with that, as a bit of background from MUSF's beginning, let's jump ahead 50 years to hear from MUSF's current executive chair, Rowell.
Amy, thank you so much for all of your support and help throughout this process. It has been an absolute joy to work with you and the entire 50th team to create an event that connects generations of Miamians and, most importantly, MUSFers. I am honored to be the 2024 Executive Chair for the Student Foundation. I am eternally grateful for the past, present, and future SteCom teams for making this role one that I and everyone before me has genuinely enjoyed. MUSF has truly made my Miami experience, as I know it did for so many of you. I joined MUSF my first semester freshman year. I jumped at the opportunity to serve as a marketing chair for the steering committee. And today I find myself standing in front of all of you. You are passionate and impressive leaders from over the years who have given so much to our organization and our university. What a thrill it is to represent the current membership of MUSF, and I'm excited to share with you what MUSF has been up to recently. In 2006, the bike race was replaced with the MUSF Triathlon, which at its height attracted 650 athletes to Oxford for a USA Triathlon sanctioned competition. This exciting event ran for over 5 years and allowed the foundation to expand in new directions. Eventually, while rebounding from the pandemic, the 2020 and 2021 steering committees revamped our signature fundraiser event to bring back the beloved 2020 bike race. This event has seen exponential growth since then and is definitely approaching its former fame. Our bike race chairs have done an amazing job at incorporating Greek life, other student organizations, and corporate sponsorships into the event. Last year, MUSF and the return of the bike race were highlighted by President Crawford in his State of the University address. The 2020 bike race is a MUSF-specific tradition, but we also uphold all Miami traditions. For example, during homecoming week. In addition to the classic homecoming parade that you are familiar with, MUSFers head uptown to paint the town red, where we decorate Miami's uptown community with positive messages, and our members also transform the Crawford's house into a wonderland of love and honor with Dr. Renata Crawford, so we can welcome alumni home for the weekend. The Merge With Me tradition is also a favorite of today's Mies. The concept of Miami mergers remains very popular today. On Valentine's Day, our moose puts on his heart-shaped sunglasses and hits the town with loads of chapstick, accompanied by other Great Com members to hand out a chapstick that has an informational graphic about MUSF and the concept of Miami mergers. We also participate in the family weekend auction during Parents Weekend. Last year, we raised over $3,500 for the foundation with outreach to both local and national businesses. Bus trips are, of course, a MUSF staple, and we were recently able to expand the only Chicago-based trip into the Cleveland area as well. Another fantastic perk of membership is that MUSFers get to host alumni and other notable figures in the President's Box during home football games and at other university advancement exclusive events. MUSF also collaborates with the Alumni Association and our Office of Annual Giving to appreciate and thank the alumni community for their generosity in supporting us during our Move in Miami Day of Giving campaign. To highlight our newest project, led by our alumni relations chairs, we are launching a Student Alumni Ambassador Initiative. This semester, our ARCOM chairs and members visited the Chicago, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland alumni chapters and met up with MUSF alum to learn about their Miami perspectives and pilot this ambassador program. MUSF consistently competes and works with the top student organizations on campus to ensure that Miami is the college experience for students. There is no better motivator than fierce competition. With over 600 student organizations on campus today, we are dedicated to working hard and upholding MUSF's legacy for the next 50 years. We were ecstatic to win the Student Philanthropist of the Year award and the Best Media Campaign Seal award this year. Despite it being finals week, our SteCom team met up to film an acceptance and thank you video in true MUSF fashion. A meeting name you may recognize, Great Com, still occurs weekly. MUSF's motto of students helping students applies to our membership body as well, and this is definitely evident in our themed Great Com meetings. An example of this set theme is when our membership committee, MEMCOM, hosts a professional development night where students receive a free headshot photograph and guidance on networking. Lastly, as you all know, the social aspect of MUSF is the glue that holds all of us together. When you look around campus this weekend, I am confident that you will see MUSF's impact. We might have different hairstyles, playlists, or mixtapes and wardrobes, but the symbolic and actual red blazers that we wear represent the hard work, dedication, and the continuous commitment to our Miami. Thank you so much for your part in growing and supporting this organization that means so much to all of us, and for gifting this experience to students coming after you, and for encouraging current members in the many ways that you do. Lastly, I'm going to introduce Sarah Franklin, our advisor. She's our Mike, our Doug, our Stefan, our Marianne, our Ray, our Dana, our Mark. She is technically our advisor, but as you all know so well, she is so much more than that. I could continue, but I need to stop before she plays my get off the stage music. Thank you.
Okay, so some of the people that are in this room that work with me will be appalled that I've been handed a mic, but it's all written down, so fortunately I think I won't run off on a tangent, hopefully. So thank you to Caroline, thank you to my other MUSFers in the room. I hope you know that there are 15 other current MUSFers that are sitting amongst you today, so if you have yet to see one, please say hi. Oh good, thank you. And they're also the lovely people driving the golf carts around for you. So be very kind to them as they are getting you out and about and around campus right now. So as we've heard plenty of times today, and as we all know, Miamians have a long tradition of supporting one another. So in my opinion, no one has done it better than the Student Foundation, though I think that that's probably a bit biased. And investing in today's Miami is one exemplary way that this support and leadership can be seen. So I want to personally thank all of you for your gift of time, your gift of talents, and your gift of treasures over the last 50 years that this organization has been helping students past, present, and future. So we have done a ton of research, and I think that I could have had almost as much fun as Amy Rile has looking into all of these things for you. So I'm really excited to share some of what MUSF's contributions to this campus have been and what we've discovered in our research. So MUSF alumni have served on the alumni chapter leadership boards across our country, have served for the Alumni Association's Board of Directors, on the Miami University Foundation Board, and on the Board of Trustees. In addition, MUSFers continue to support their other passions and affinities on campus, such as Greek life, academic affairs, athletics, etc. The financial impact of MUSFers across the board has been a cumulative commitment of $22 million in the last 50 years. With $10 million of that being cash that goes straight to our students, so thank you. We've awarded personally, as a foundation, $600,000 from our endowment to scholarship recipients. We looked into the lives of those, which means, very fancily, I stalked them on LinkedIn and social medias to see what MUSFers that you've impacted are out and about doing in the world today. So we have emergency medicine physicians, a director of strategy for healthcare professionals, public, private attorneys, accountants, marketing professionals, teachers, school psychologists, education coordinators, a veterinarian who's opened her own practice out west. We have data analysts, sales professionals, investment and human capital consultants, and a recent graduate who has been awarded a Fulbright Research Award to study women politicians' digital safety on the campaign trail in Japan next year. So that is just a quick list. There are plenty more. So these are people that are out in the world doing good today. Current MUSF students, I have the good fortune of accepting all the thank you letters every year from current students. And this is what they tell me they are doing right now. So these are students that are still in the midst of getting their degrees. We have an architecture major who serves as the Multicultural Greek Council president. We have engineering majors who have focuses in manufacturing and paper sciences. We have a nurse practitioner who is working at our local pharmacy when she's not in class. We have supply chain and operation management major who's involved in women in business and Miami management and leadership. We have an SDS pizza cook who studies computer engineering. So someone very intelligent who's also making your pizzas. And an accounting major who is bilingual. So we are fortunate to continue to see the impact on students like these currently and students that have been here maybe just a few years ago or later. So thank you all once again for your unwavering support and dedication to the Miami University Student Foundation. Here's to the next 50 years of making a difference together. So before I turn things back over to Brad, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and extend my heartfelt thanks to my 50th anniversary committee. Your dedication, hard work, and planning has made this milestone and this celebration weekend possible. So thank you. I am deeply grateful for your efforts and the tolerance of my often long rambles and side stories. So I very much appreciate that. And to the other advisors and directors in the room, I hope you have the same feel goods in this role that I do. I work every day with the Alumni Association, but as all of my colleagues know, my heart is very much with my students. I'm thankful to work with a team of impressive young adults every day and to be encouraged by my fellow alumni staff members as I continue to encourage growth and development of the next generations of Miami alums. So, with that being said, Brad Trucksis, if you could please rejoin me up here, and we is going to get into the part where we honor the founders and awardees for the afternoon. What time is it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Good job. Thank you. She's fantastic. Can we have another round of applause for her, please? Before we begin with the awards presentations, I'd just like to take a quick minute. You know, it's obvious that MUSF has been so blessed with so many financial contributors. And I'd be remiss if I didn't share that currently there's some people in this room and a few who couldn't attend who have put up another $100,000 matching gift challenge. And so should you feel so inclined to contribute, there are a couple of options. One is certainly on the MUSF page. There's a link there. You can hit that and contribute. Or Lisa, where are you? Lisa over here in the bright red dress. Lisa's in development and she would love to talk with you. Thank you. Okay. Over the last 50 years, MUSF's been richly blessed with the contributions of over 1,600 students, alumni, faculty. But in the beginning, there were just only a handful of individuals who were selfless in spirit, brilliant in mind, and passionate in heart, with a common objective of creating something bigger than themselves that would benefit Miami and its students for generations. Those are the individuals who want to celebrate today. Our first award is going to be Doug Wilson. And Doug is going to receive the Miami MUSF Inception Award. And Lindsay, would you come up here and help me do a little unveiling? Thank you. We figure everyone who's receiving an award today has a bazillion trophies and plaques and pieces of crystal. So we felt it appropriate to give them something that hopefully no one shelf has one of these. And no one worked as hard for the people who are going to recognize as they did. Doug envisioned the creation of MUSF, as you've heard today. I mean, having grown up under the tutelage of his father, Charles, class of 26 here at Miami, who was the university provost under Presidents John Millett, and Dr. Shriver. And so, you know, you can't get much closer to that. And then Doug was a true visionary. It was said of him, and I'm going to quote, Doug's greatest strength was encouraging others to think big. Mike, is that a fair statement? Okay. So in 1972, as Miami's Director of Alumni Affairs, amidst a tumultuous backdrop of the Vietnam War and the protest residue, Doug knew that this campus was ready for something different, something new, something positive, something fresh, something constructive, versus the negative sentiment that was so prevalent. He knew that if he could articulate a vision for an outlet to make a difference at Miami, that students with the desired talent, leadership, and commitment to be part of something better would make that happen. And those students are here today. As a result of Doug's love of Miami, his vision for the future, and his confidence in the potential of the Miami student, we celebrate 50 years of his reality and the benefit and the creation of MUSF. We are blessed today to have 10 members of Doug Wilson's family with us. We have daughter Hilary and her husband David, and child Finn. Finn is here, yes. And then we have Haley, daughter Haley, and Kevin, and I don't know, both. So Kirsten, or Kira, yeah, good. Welcome to have you here. And I think it's Brady as well, too, right? Would you two stand up? You're so precious. Please. Thank you. Doug Wilson's grandchildren. Precious, thank you. And then we have son Grant and Kathy. Is that right? Welcome, thank you. So would Hilary, Haley, and Grant, please come up. Please. We're going to do photos afterwards, but we want you to enjoy this in recognition of your dad. It's a small token, but it's a big appreciation. Hilary, would you grace us with some comments? Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Wow, I can tell you he does not have a moose trophy. And I've never seen anything so beautiful. So thank you. Thank you to Brad, and thank you to Sarah, and so many others who've welcomed all of us back to Miami and to Oxford to help celebrate this amazing milestone. My name is Hilary Parker. I'm a 1997 graduate and a MUSF member. And Haley is a 2002 graduate. And Grant decided he was going to go somewhere else.
He wears the red, though.
But don't worry, he grew up with this too. We're good. And we're here with our families, and we're really honored to celebrate with you. Growing up in our house, Halloween meant bringing candy to MUSFers, doing the phone-a-thon. It meant snow days off from school at Merstein, putting stamps on donation envelopes for the student campaigns, and sliding down Merstein Hill because that was awesome. In fact, one of my favorite MUSF stories actually came from Merstein Hall. Papa told us that he was at his desk working with paper and pen because this was like the early 80s, and I guess that's what people did then. I don't know how anything got done. And his secretary knocked on the door. She looked pretty stricken, and she said, "There are 2 men here. They don't have an appointment." Okay. Our dad, always happy to meet anybody interested in Miami, said, "Sure, show 'em in." 2 very sharply dressed men, in fact, entered that room. They wore dark suits and sported slicked back hair. Both had sunglasses on and very serious expressions, and Papa found himself looking for an earpiece. Were they FBI? Were they CIA? No, they were P&G. Procter & Gamble. Now seated, with files pulled from their briefcases, one of them asked, "Mr. Wilson, what exactly is this MUSF?" So apparently, a significant number of new leaders at Procter & Gamble had already been through the MUSF experience, and P&G wanted to know more about how MUSF was turning out so many great young leaders. As he tells it, Papa said simply, "We encourage them to make the world a better place, starting with Miami." An hour later, satisfied they had some tips that they could take back to corporate on how to make corporate training a little bit better, the suits were gone, and Papa said he sat there and smiled. He was already so proud of the MUSF program. But there was something cool about having P&G stop by, just wondering what all the fuss was about. It was in that moment that he realized that these MUSF students were making the world better, that it was working. When Brad asked me and our family to share a bit about Doug Wilson and his vision for MUSF, I agreed, not because he was any more extraordinary than anyone in this room, but because he was extraordinarily good. He lived a life of service that any MUSFer could be proud of, dedicating thousands upon thousands of hours in addition to community organizations, in addition to the work he did for higher education. Importantly, he didn't try to save the world, or even bend it to his will, or change it. He just pitched in to relieve suffering where he saw it, and that helped change things. I believe his philosophy is something we could use a little bit more of these days, and I can sum it up in 3 words. He was humble, gracious, and curious. In terms of being humble, his longtime colleague and former Indiana University president, Kurt Simic, said in his eulogy of Papa, Doug Wilson was always the first person at a work-related event and the last person to leave. He was determined to serve his community and was happy to put in the time. He never considered any aspect of the work to be beneath him, and that was how he met folks from all walks of life and became friends. As for his graciousness, he was always deeply interested in others. Never one to listen just as long as it took before it was his turn to speak. He was an active listener. He was always learning, but interestingly, he very rarely shared a strong opinion. He let his life's work be his message. He also worked hard to ensure that everyone around him felt seen and was an early adopter of inclusive language, not because it was expected, but because it was kind. In terms of curiosity, he was a student of history, but he was not one to pass judgment. Rather, he approached current affairs, no matter how challenging, 1970s America, with a light heart and a long lens. Very little ruffled him. This curiosity also enabled him to change his mind when presented with new information or a different perspective. He was flexible and didn't tie himself or his sense of self to one way of thinking or being. The media would have us believe that these characteristics are missing in today's hyper-individualized and polarized world. I disagree. Maybe acting in this way doesn't sell newspapers, though I would read the heck out of something like that. But from where I'm standing, there are still plenty of folks who are determined to give of themselves in the service of others, especially right here in this room. We were lucky enough to grow up alongside some of them. John Dollaboy, Mike Macechko, Stephen Davis, Ray Mock, Dana Bolar, and many more. And I'll wager everyone in this room. So humor me for a moment. If you're able, would you please raise your hand if you have served on a board for a nonprofit? Just a few of you. Good, good. Keep your hands up, please. Ever coached a kid's athletic team? Oh, yeah. How about volunteered with the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts? Okay. Served as a mentor? Keep those hands up. I like it. Protested against an injustice? Volunteered at a soup kitchen? Written a letter to the editor? Bought whatever the kids were selling door to door to get to their class trip to DC. Served in Rotary, rescued an animal, donated time to a cause near and dear to your heart. I mean, this is everybody. This is everybody. We lost Papa in March of 2021 as he approached the end of his long battle with dementia. He was often unable to speak at the end, but he could still sing. And he did. We sang Pavarotti, poorly. Frank Sinatra, slightly better. What amazed me about his passing was that he greeted his death as the same humble, gracious, and curious man he was. He embraced it. He surrendered to whatever was next. He was certain that he had done all he could in the service of others, and I think that's a really great life. There's a lot to admire about that extraordinary goodness. And as MUSF alums, we are already the benefactors of these lessons. They are baked right into the organization's framework. They're even in the tagline, past, present, and future. Walk humbly in reverence to the past. Act graciously in service of the present. Remain curious when building the future. As anthropologist and keen observer of humanity, Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Doug Wilson would want this group to remember that you are the thoughtful, committed citizens that have changed the world. We have to understand the past, serve in the present, and build a better future. We must continue to do so. That's the life he lived. And it's the one MUSF prepared us for. I know you'll keep making a difference, one moment at a time, and inspiring future generations to do the same. Thank you.
Hilary, Haley, Grant, thank you. The gift of the Wilson family continues to be a blessing to Miami University. Thank you. Thank you. Our next award recipient is going to be introduced by Mark Macechko. Mark's the executive director of the Miami University Alumni Association. Mark?
Thanks, Brad. You gave me a raise. I'm the associate executive director. Whatever. Details, whatever. So when Brad asked me to speak about this and to introduce my dad, I was really excited. And he said, "I want you to tell the story. What's the connection with MUSF and your dad? What's the connection with you and MUSF and your dad?" So I said, "All right, I can do that." Now, I will warn you, the last time I did introduce my dad, some of you were in that audience, I know, I struggled to make it through, so I will try to do my best this time not to have that happen again. Hope it goes more smoothly. So we're all here because of MUSF. Without Doug Wilson's vision for the program, without those student founders, without the first director of MUSF, my dad, Mike Macechko, without the first SteCom, without the generations of Moose who are in this room now and that followed, none of us is here. For me personally, without the foundation, and specifically without my dad's involvement in MUSF, I'm not here at Miami University doing this work in alumni relations, which is a lot of fun and a bit exhausting. So, I'm going to take us on a little bit of a story to path. So, with apologies to my dad's mentor, John Dollaboy, my dad's path to being the first director of MUSF, my mom's path to being the first true mom of MUSF, my brother's path to SteCom, my path to being a Moose and eventually director of MUSF, is all one big pattern of circles. Dad graduated from Miami in 1965 and was part of the NORTC program, so he had to do his tour with the Navy. But he came back to Miami in 1970 to be a part of the College Student Personnel Program and was resident director at Sims Hall. My mom at that point was an undergrad and resident assistant at Reed Hall. So Sims and Reed always had this annual Powder Puff football game where the Sims staff coached the Reed team and vice versa. So my dad was trying to find his quarterback. So he was having everyone give a shot at throwing the ball. So when he gave the ball to my mom, she zipped it right back to him. See, mom had an older brother that wouldn't let her throw like a girl, as he said. So at that point, Dad had found his quarterback. Thus started their relationship, which led to them being married in 1972, right after Mom graduated. So then they moved to beautiful West Liberty, West Virginia, where Dad became the Assistant Dean of Men at West Liberty State University. If you'd like a story about that, you should ask him. There's some pretty funny stories about his time there at West Liberty. Thankfully, Doug Wilson reached out to Dad and asked him to come back to Miami a year later and be the director of this new student program called the Miami University Student Foundation, Pattern of Circles. Dad directed MUSF for a number of years before eventually becoming director of alumni affairs at Miami until 1988. In that time back here in Oxford, he and Mom had 3 boys, my older brother Matt, me, and my younger brother Michael. All 3 of us experienced alumni relations work, specifically MUSF. I think most of us really remember the 2020 bike races, and those are the ones that really stick out in our minds. But those Miami seeds and those MUSF seeds were planted and ingrained in us. Pattern of circles. We moved in the summer of 1988 to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Where is that, we said. Where Dad became the executive director of the Arkansas Alumni Association, woo pig suey. Where eventually he started a program similar to MUSF called the Student Alumni Board. More on that later. It was a big move, a tough move for all of us, but we grew to love Fayetteville and we grew to love the University of Arkansas. But no matter how much we loved our new home, there was always something calling us back here to Miami. So all three of the brothers came back to Miami. Dad wished he had set up some kind of out-of-state tuition for alumni scholarship at that point, but Matt and I were both Moose. Hilary Parker was a big reason Matt was a part of MUSF and became a part of steering committee. And I was on the committee that helped plan the 25-year MUSF reunion. Tim Nolan was chair of that. He's in the crowd. Pattern of Circles. I graduated in 2001, knowing I wanted to do alumni work because I'm crazy, because of my exposure with MUSF as a kid and as a Miami student. So I went home to Arkansas for grad school and started to work for the top alumni director in the nation and became the graduate assistant for the Arkansas Alumni Association and director of the Student Alumni Board, which I mentioned before. It's modeled after MUSF, Pattern of Circles. I graduated from Arkansas. My wife Amy and I got married. She's also in Miami, we're mergers, and lived in the Chicagoland for a couple of years before the director of MUSF position opened up here at Miami. So I threw my hat in the ring. I said, this is it, I can do this. With all my experience with MUSF and SAB, I earned the job and was hired by Ray Mock, who, incidentally, was hired by Mike Macechko to be director of MUSF back in 1983. Pattern of Circles. Which leads us back here. The 50th reunion celebration for the Miami University Student Foundation, honoring the wonderful people who made MUSF happen and made it into the great organization that it is today. Without them, and without all of those who followed, none of us are here. None of this would have happened. None of us would have experienced the great things that we've experienced being a part of MUSF. It truly is an amazing and wonderful pattern of circles. So, I'm not gonna do it. Please join me in welcoming and honoring the first director of MUSF, former director of alumni relations for Miami. An amazing.
You were so close.
Dang it, Ray. Thank you. An amazing mentor and friend, and the best dad in the world, Mike Macechko. There you go.
Well, I have to have this. I have to. Thank you, Mark. Pattern of Circles is what John Dolliboy's book was all about. It's amazing. Let's look at that. All of you have said everything that I wanted to say, so I'm going to sit down. But there are a couple things I have to say. Doug, as we all know, set the foundation of this foundation. He was a big thinker. Nothing was too big. For example, he brought the Goodyear blimp to Oxford for Alumni Week. He brought Miss America, who was a Miami graduate, here for Alumni Week. There was nothing that was too big to handle. But he was also a pragmatist. He was the master of the checklist. And that's something I've lived by, and I hope I pass it on to MUSF, especially for the bike race. Checklists. Check them off and you're going to make it. Bruce Henke and his formation committee, they weren't going to see what they were spending all the time doing. But they did a great job of that initial group, because that group was phenomenal. It was diverse, as everybody said, but it was just, they were bright and they were enthusiastic. The university supported us. The faculty, people like Ron Wiley, who recently passed away, and Jack Gifford, who was a judge, led the judges for the bike race. Staff members like Bill Hanger, you can't imagine being in that press box and trying to keep track of 20 bikers and their speed and their laps and getting it right. He was an enthusiastic part of that. And then there were alumni who helped. That first event we did, the Red Carpet Day, Congressman Mike Oxley from Findlay came and was our keynote speaker. Mike Oxley was an incredible congressman, but he was a Miamian and he loved it. Mike Beavis, who's here. Mike worked for Huffy. And that first year, we went up to Huffy with this crazy idea. And he said, sure, why not? And without it, the bike race would not have happened. And Mike is here today. He's always been here. He's terrific. Thank you, Mike. And then there were the students, you. I often thought that there wasn't a better student organization on this campus, and there never would be. And I was amazed to hear that there aren't many student organizations that have lasted all these years. You were energetic. You did things when you were dead tired, but you did it. You were outside thinkers. Who would have ever thought a moose on this sophisticated campus would catch anybody's eye? You were detail-oriented. Those checklists, you did those. But you made sure that, unlike some of your colleagues, some of your fellow students, that you did things and you did them right and you had all the things checked off. I'll never forget that I think it was the second bike race that it rained all week at the, and Miami Field was, the track was soaking wet. And Dick Schreider said, you're not going to ruin the bikes on that track, you're going to ruin it. And the chairman, Gigi Tenuta, said, oh yes we will. We'll get it dry. So she formed a team with brooms, many of which were taken from the residence hall closets, and they literally swept the water off of the track so that we could ride the bike race. Dick Schreider said, I've never seen a group do that. He says, you can do anything you want as long as I'm here. You were enthusiastic. You heard the story about the P&G. I remember that so vividly. We thought they were FBI. But one of you in this room, who is with P&G now, was the cause of that. Bill Ceylon, they mentioned you personally as the person. Where did this guy come from? And he's what started them to think about, let's track it down and see why a person who was in MUSF is somebody we want. The continued leadership that kept it going. When I stepped down, I had Stefan to do it. And I knew Stefan could do it. And he did it. And when he stepped down, it was Ray. And when Ray stepped down, it was Dana. None of you understand the commitment that we all did, because we spent hours with you when we should have been home with our families. We spent time more than anybody else in other jobs. My wife, Chris, who couldn't be here because she had a back procedure this week, it's killing her that she couldn't be here. But she often talked about, we have 4 kids, Matt, Mark, Michael, and MUSF. And we did. Finally, the Miami Magic is what did it. A unique university, we all know that. Our beloved university, an environment that just makes it special. Mark talked about SAB at the University of Arkansas. It works, but not quite like this. And it's because of you, the students. Love and honor.
Thank you, Mike. Our next award recipients are considered the founders of MUSF. And so let me try to give you a little bit of background perspective. I'm going to try to set the stage. Bruce Henke, class of 72, editor of the Recensio, and well accomplished, Phi Beta Kappa and a few other things like that. He's working for Doug Wilson. He's the first grad assistant in the alumni department. I don't know if he has a cube or an office, but I just envision Doug leaving his office and just walking down the hall, going up to Bruce and saying, "Hey Bruce, I got an idea. Tell me what you think." Bruce says, reads it over. "I think this is a great idea. Matter of fact, I've got 4 friends. Mind if I share it with them and see what they think?" Let me to be clear, these 4 friends weren't just students. Each already had run a major campus organization as juniors. Connie Casey Green, president of Concert Board. Barb Loudon, president of Program Board. Todd Bailey, vice president of Student Body. And Marty Lourdes Villegas, who's not with us today, but still equally impressive, president of the Association of Women Students. Bruce couldn't have selected a more diverse and disparate collection of leadership skills that were just exactly the kind that MUSF needed to get developed. Importantly, these individuals, they'd already demonstrated their ability to grow students, to build organizations. But this time, the prize was different. It wasn't one and done. This was foundational. Big, big difference. I'd like to recognize each one of these individuals individually. So if you would welcome Bruce Henke to the stage as the first founder.
Thank you all for the recognition, and thank you for being great members of a great organization. You are meeting a lawyer who doesn't like to talk in public. So that's all I'm saying.
That was my bad. I did say words, didn't I? All right. I know who can top that. Connie, come on up here.
Well, Bruce would always talk in groups, just not this size of group. When we did this, we didn't know it would be 50 years, but we prayed it would be 20 years because we didn't want something to die, because we knew there was something bigger about giving back. And the giving back keeps on going. I'm looking at Bruce because what you do, and no matter how you get back in time, you get back on money, you get back on ideas, you get back to your community. The giving back was the important part of this. Doug's crazy idea was brilliant, but he also sent us around. We went to Indiana University. We did a road trip. It was an interesting road trip. We'll save that story for later, but we got to IU. We did that, and we came back and we thought, well, they're good, but we'd be better. It had nothing to do with arrogance. It had to do with they had concepts. We could see how you could make it strong. And that's what each of you have done. MUSF's alive and well because each of you have made it better every year. So the founders and the others that follow me here, it was about putting something together that you would make better. I look at some of you around that have done this, and when I think back 50 years, so my husband is in Oregon. We live in Oregon. And I was walking the campus today. I got here at 8, so I walked the campus, and I was taking pictures and then sending them to him. You realize that 8 in Oregon is not 8, it's 5, right? So he's having coffee and I'm sending pictures. But the joy of giving back, the joy of watching a campus, and the joy of knowing it's not about you, it's about those around you. When I get home to my 2 granddaughters and show them this, I will have many stories to tell, but this tells a story that nothing else could share. It's not like any other award. It has no dignity. And it's totally about the fun and out-of-the-box thinking that you do in communities to give. You give out of fun, you give out of need, it's out of the box, and that's what this is. I'm glad I get to be a MUSF. Thank you so much.
Connie, thank you so much. Barb? Dare you, come on up.
Please. Barb, Luecke, Loudon.
Let me give you another one here, just a second. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was an unlikely time, as you were told. The culture of the campus was not one of support and create something new, and isn't this a great time to come up with a new student organization? And yet, Doug Wilson, tremendous mentor, felt that it could be done and told the right person, Bruce Henke, who approached us all, and I don't know how he approached the rest of us, but he approached me by saying, "You're not doing anything senior year, come help with this." And that hook, students helping students, was the hook that made me say yes, absolutely. But the support we had from the Alumni Association was just phenomenal. You talked about a checklist, and I'm a checklist person. And we did our checklist, and after the visit to IU, and everybody said, well, we've got to do the bike race. So we were thinking, it's going to take us at least 3 years to get a bike race pulled off. The organization and raising money and doing all this, and we were thinking small. And Doug encouraged us to think bigger and said, by the way, the Alumni Association is going to underwrite you for 3 years. Oh, checklist, skip to step 50. And then he said, oh, and by the way, the vice president of Huffy Bikes is a Miami alumni. Oh, we're going to have a bike race that first year. So we spent a lot of time and effort and had a lot of fun creating the perfect student organization, and then we were all going to leave. So choosing that first steering committee was so important to us. We brought different viewpoints to that selection process. I remember reading over the resumes we received and interviewing the students to choose the people who could carry out the vision, because we were all insanely jealous that we were going to graduate and couldn't be a part of that. And when I look at the MUSE, one of the things people say, well, how did the MUSE develop? We did not do the MUSE. We came up with the logo. Mike Stoff actually drew the logo. But we didn't come up with the mascot. In one of the first meetings, the training session of the first steering committee, someone says, well, how do we pronounce this? Are we MUSF? Are we MUSF? Are we MUSF? What are we? And we said, no, you're MUSF. And pretty soon, within minutes, everybody was making moose calls. And I said, we've chosen the right people to carry this forward. They're thinking outside the box and creatively already. So our thank you goes, you're thanking us, but we are thanking you. Everybody in this room has made that vision come true for us. And I walked into this room and saw all of the people who made our dreams come true. And I thank you so much for making that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Todd, Todd Bailey, would you please come up and grace us with your presence?
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We all have certain indelible memories that we call up every once in a while. This will be one for me. The other that comes to mind is in August of 1969, I was standing on the runway at Mascot Airport in Sydney, Australia, which is where I grew up. And I was going to travel halfway around the world to a place that I knew nothing about and knew nobody. And it was Miami. And the rewards that I enjoyed associating with people like everyone in this room were enormous. I was an RA in Sims my sophomore year, and I know Mr. Macechko not as Mike, but as Mace. So, I don't know if I'm allowed to. Okay, so, and we have stories, but not to be shared here. Of course, Mike Beavis was a fraternity brother of mine, and instrumental, as you know, in contributing to the success of this organization. But it's all of you who've made this happen. I was raised to understand that work is service, and service is work. And all of you exemplify that. So I thank you. I'll share one other just brief thought with you. Well, first of all, my grandkids are going to love this. I had the privilege about a month ago of coming up here to speak to the current Student Foundation membership. I think there were, I don't know, Sarah, 60, 80 probably. And my mission was to have them understand and perhaps more profoundly appreciate how toxic things were at this campus in 1970. Did you know that at the Flush-In we wasted 2.2 million gallons of water? And I asked them, do you know how we organized that? We didn't have social media, we didn't have any of that stuff. The beta bells. 6 p.m. on the designated evening, the Flush-In occurred. And it was the beta bells that was instrumental to organizing that. Now, I confess to the students, that was probably one of the most boneheaded ideas we'd ever had. So it's not an item of pride. But again, I thank you sincerely. And I've designated Caroline to be here for the 100th anniversary. So make sure she shows up, all right? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Todd. One of the more difficult decisions of the founders, one of the early decisions, and Barb has talked about this a bit, they need to select their successors. I mean, so you all are seniors, and or Bruce is a grad student, so you're out of here, and you have to pass the baton, but you don't have any opportunity to stay and help along the way. And so you have to make certain that you find the very best people that you can, and just believe in the Miami spirit, they can get the job done. Well, given the profiles of the Miami students, since most of them all were, top 10%, a plethora of them all around, it's like that's going to be kind of hard. And the fact that I'm leaving makes it even a little more challenging. Well, this was a little bit of the backstory for our next recipient, Tom Anthony, and the first MUSF Chair Award. If you know Tom, you know he's a special human being. You know that he has a special ability to bring the best out in others, especially while creating an environment where people are going to strive to work collaboratively for outcomes that they can never accomplish individually. This was the motivation for Doug Wilson and Mike Macechko to one day appear together in front of Tom and say, hey, Tom, would you consider being the first chair? And I think the rest is an exciting history. I want to share just for a quick moment a story that I think highlights the passion of the MUSFer for doing what many may think is impossible or very hard to accomplish, but the MUSFer thinks, well, this is just what's required to get the job done. So, like any campus event that needs publicity, you've got to have signs and posters, and you have to put them all around campus and uptown, right? Well, back in the early 70s, when you're starting a bike race and people don't know what a bike race is other than, traditionally, where are you going to do it? You're going to do it on a cinder track with huffy bikes. And who's this MUSF? So Tom and then Susan Shelly had become experts at silk screening in the basement of Tuffy's all of these posters. And so they wanted to put them all around campus. Well, there was a problem. There was an organization called Associated Student of Government, ASG, and they were the gate to which any organization had to pass for approval to put anything on campus that was sanctioned. So, unfortunately, ASG didn't like MUSF. And I think that's hopefully saying it politely. They were the new kid in town, and they were getting all of the best people, and they were starting to get all the funding, and it's like, we don't need you. And so ASG had a stamp that was required on the back of every poster, and there is no way MUSF is ever going to see this stamp. So Tom, obviously chair at the time, and then later a very successful lawyer in Cincinnati, decided to go to the administration office where ASG was located. He walks in and nobody's there. Except, there's the stamp. True story. This upright standing citizen borrowed. Went back, took that stamp, and it went on every single poster for 2020, went all around campus, all uptown. We were standing room only for the very first bike race, and this is just an example of the extent to which MUSF people go to make things happen. Come on up here, Tom.
Please. Well, the truth is, I went to 3 set appointments with the head of ASG, and they stood me up. And I had noticed the stamp probably on visit 2. And on visit 3, it left in my pocket. And I know it's still in my house in Maryland. I tried to find it among the memorabilia that we donated back. And some of the posters are here. They're in the office. There's 2 of them there that Susan and I made. Well, it's been said very well today, you all made it great. We started it, and, it's been just fantastic to watch it grow and develop. Everything you did to orchestrate its success. I should share this with everybody on that first steering committee because everybody contributed. And I think my biggest challenge was getting them to pay attention to MUSF. I never called it MUSF. Jeff Swan, where are you? He was the first moose. There he is. And everybody was a full-time student. Everybody had a big organization they were running already, and then I had to get them to energize around MUSF, and thank goodness they did. And Ellen, the next chair, a powerhouse leader. So many people on that first committee were just fantastic, and of course my wife. So here's to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. There were 24 members, you've heard that, the first steering committee, amazing individuals. We are excited and fortunate to have 7 of them with us today. And, bias aside, these individuals represented some of the very best and the very brightest of Miami student population. They had to be. They had to be because they were charged with creating something that didn't exist. But oh, by the way, this has to be sustaining for generations. Talk about a tall order. But these were special individuals. They were from Miami University. They knew how to get things done. They were a powerhouse of bright, young, articulate, dynamic leaders with a desire to create something positive and enduring for Miami. We'd have enough of the protests. We'd had enough negativity. My mom used to say, don't get so consumed in your right to protest that you forget your right to contribute. And that's exactly what these people did. When you realize all that they accomplished in 1 year, if we were starting afresh today, good chance we would say, to get all of these same things done, you're going to need 10 years to vet them before implementation. What are we talking about? Red carpet days, 2020 bike race, integration of host-hostess, okay? Couldn't drop the ball, that was already running. So the bar was already here, we had to just take it higher. Campus tours. And then of course you've got to regenerate, so you have to have a membership drive. So as Tom tells the story, they put the signs out with the ASG stamps, and then they went over to the res and said, we're going to have a membership drive for MUSF. They're expecting 25 to 30 people. There were like 250, 300 people wanting to apply. They took 77. We'd like to recognize each of the individual first steering committee members. Let's start with a big round of applause. Here's who we're talking about. Please, come on. Susan, come on up here. Is it Susan, Shelly, Anthony? Then we're going to get to Rick Ciccarone, Diane Hall, Diane Rausch Huffman, Ellen Biscotti Rittgers, Jeff Swan, and then Tom, you were a member, so we need to get you again. Here, bless you. Please.
I knew I was asked to be part of something that was really going to be magical on this campus, and for the end of my college career, that spring of 1973, went for an interview, got the call to be part of MUSF. I wasn't really sure what it was, but immediately we were packed off in a van and taken to be in the infield of the Little 500 at Indiana University. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. These are really cool people. This is going to be magic. And I was turning the corner. I was so glad at the time that I said yes to this new opportunity. I had closed the door on 3 years of cheerleading, and I was going to do something new to end my college career. And I remember soon after that, we were given the keys to Tuffy's, which was where I'd gone on my first date with my future husband. And we took over the basement of Tuffy's, and I thought, what student organization gets to have a whole building, Tuffy's? I knew that the alumni office, Doug, Mike, were powerful people, and I thought, this is cool, this is going to be wonderful. It was magic, and you all have continued it, and I'm so glad you've all said yes, and it's just been great. Thank you.
Richard, would you please come up? Rich Ciccarone.
Thank you very much. This is the last thing I would have ever expected to do 50 years ago, is come up and get a little token of appreciation for the work we did. I will say, I'm bringing a moose head home. My wife's not with me. I'm going to call her up and tell her, I'm bringing you a moose head home. And after she gasps, I'm going to tell her, but it's not for the wall. So, but thank you on that. I'll just say something very briefly, and it's so much a pleasure, frankly. I think more than anything else, when you're in an organization like this, it's really about relationships you build. And it goes beyond our first year, of course. And so when we see each other after 50 years, as older, and some of us, that's really what we really bring home with us, is the, refinding those relationships you thought you'd never see again. And for those of you that are younger, you're going to feel the same way down the road when you come back in 50 years. And I think that's really what the most important gift of this is for us. We're getting a lot of attention. We appreciate that attention, but please remember that. I think one of the things that I really appreciated about MUSF and my participation in it, and I was asked to be a part of a co-chair on the red carpet day. And why I like that so much was because, you know, I get vested in what I get involved with. And, you know, in a company I was involved with, we were employee-owned, came up with the idea of vested in our success because we were employee-owned. And I think in a way here, when MUSF students get involved, they're getting in the MUSF gives you a special relationship with the university, that's your role, is a vested interest in. You realize that if Miami University does well into the future, that's good for your career, that's for your reputation, for your resume, but it's also good for attracting just quality of students, and if you want to send your children there, it'll be a good school for them down the road too. So every one of us does that with a little bit of selfishness, I suppose, but on the other hand, it's about along the way, do it, what are those relationships that come along with that? And you're going to be very pleased. It'll give you purpose and meaning in all that you do. So the red carpet was particularly strong. I would just say this last thing. It's particularly a good program that I was proud to be a part of because we were trying to attract the best students in Ohio. We had 165 selected students that applied to Miami that we knew in terms of what they call matriculation, that you can't get them all to come when they're at that level. They have a lot of options. That was our job. And when we talk about relationships again there, it's the students that have the relationship when they're taking them out to lunch or taking them around campus that are developed here that attracts them to want to go to Miami. And the success rate, I believe, Mike, I think, and it was a good success rate in terms of the number of students that actually showed up. Now that's longer than I wanted to talk, but it's hard for an Italian to keep it short. You know, so I'll do it there. So thank you very much.
Richard, you did a nice job. Diane Hall, please. Thank you. Diane Hall, everyone.
Thank you all so very much for being here today. My reminiscence is actually showing how MUSF has moved forward far beyond the expectation. I can't speak for anyone else on the committee, but of my expectations. I mean, I might have been a part of the maybe 20 years, but I know I wasn't a part of the, 50 years down the road, we would still be here. About 15 years ago, my nephew in Cincinnati was looking to find a college home. And so we called Miami and asked for a MUSF tour. And we were given a private tour by a lovely young gentleman, just lovely, saw this whole campus, saw the things that were new at that time, and were given a wonderful lunch. And it really opened my nephew's eyes and my eyes to how MUSF had an enduring effect at this university, and that was wonderful. And then to have that cemented, I'm not walking as well as I used to right at the moment, and I have had the pleasure of being in the carts of some of you current MUSFs in the last 48 hours and loved every minute of it. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for everything you do for the university. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. Diane Rausch Huffman, please.
In the words of Susan Anthony, I knew it was going to be magical. We went to the bike race, we came back, we sat in the basement on the floor, and we talked about, can we do this? And it was never, can we do this? It's just, well, yeah, we can do this. We can do this bigger and better, and we can do it in a much more exciting way. And it wasn't even a question, which is so different from the negativity you get a lot of times in the people who say you can't do anything. It was always, yeah, we can do it. How do we do it? Who wants to do it? Everybody raises their hands. So it's been really fun over the years to watch as things go forward. My sister came to one of the, she's here with me today, Patty Rausch, Rotenbiller. She came to one of the first red carpet days, and then 4 years later, she was chairman of red carpet days for MUSF. So, you just reel them in. And then my son had the good sense to marry Becca Clare, who was the chairman from 2004 to 2005, I think. But she's not here today because she and my son have 5 kids, and 4 of them are playing sports. You know how that goes, grandparents. And then her brother's here today. He was chairman, Bob, somewhere, in the 80s, just a kid. So, but the thing I want to do is thank the generations that came after us, because like we said, whoever had any idea that it would continue this long and grow and change? I mean, things came, things went, and the student-led organization always knew what the students wanted, what the students needed. But not only did we get all this leadership and growth experience, but the students that we served had also a benefit. And the student-giving student will never forget that mantra. I think that's the best thing going. And thank you all that came behind us and kept it going. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. Ellen Biscotti Rittgers, would you please? That's it.
Biscuit. I haven't been called that for a long time. I'm going to tell you a story a little different from everybody else's, because it's not hyperbolic to say that, and I'm like Tom, I never called it MUSF, I called it MUSF. And it made me the best me that I could be. My husband, who's also a proud Miami grad, he's not here, he's in the middle of our impetuous move right now. He didn't know the pre-MUSF me, and he can't believe she existed. I was an introvert, I hung on the edge, I liked to observe, I was afraid of putting myself out there. But I really, really wanted to be part of this group. The whole idea of students helping students. And I didn't make the cut. I got the call that they were sorry, there were other ways to serve the foundation, and I accepted it. I didn't do too much moping. After that first training session, one of the selected members said it was too big a commitment, and they couldn't do it. And it was either you, Todd, or you, Bruce. It was a founder, and it was a man, or we were a guy then. And he said, "Hey, Ellen, somebody's dropped out. Would you be willing to take it?" And I said, "Willing? Of course I'd be willing. What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, they're already a group, and you're the alternate." And I said, "I want it. I want to do it." So for me, that was a pivotal moment. I put myself out there. And the one thing that hasn't been said today about every characteristic that all of you possess, there wasn't one ego in that room. There was no hierarchy, and that's because of you, Tom. And we just worked as a team, and it taught me that I could put myself out there, and I could work with other people who had the same motivation and the same goals. And MUSF, I'm coming along, is making Miami its best self, too. So thank you all.
That's great, Ellen. Thank you. Jeff Swan.
Well, I've been asked to give the story of the birth of Mr. MUSF. But before I do that, one thing we all know is you always listen to the student advisor. And Sarah has ordered me to do a side story. So I was always I did a lot of campus tours. Basically because all the buildings have names, so they're hard to screw up. So my wife and I were walking around the quad here yesterday, and I saw outside of Alumni Hall an outdoor drinking fountain. And I was so happy to see that drinking fountain. And I ran over and I took a picture. My wife said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Oh, when I would do campus tours, I would always bring the parents and the kid to the drinking fountain. and I would say, you have to take a drink here. This is a big deal, very important. You got to take pictures. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And the parents would always turn to me and say, so what's with the drinking fountain? And I said, because it's reserved. It's reserved for special people. You have to be a freshman or a dog to drink on this fountain. I always loved the look on their faces. So anyway, the birth of Mr. MUSF. And I want to give Ellen a nod here. When she said we all work together, that's true. You may have been a committee chairman, but you were a worker. Everyone were workers. So I was on a committee to do the moose. As we said, obviously a moose. Now, I get too much credit. Miss Janine DeLay was also guilty of this. So Janine and I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So we go home, and this is, a lot of the foundation work, as you've heard, really started in the spring of '73. So we did all this work, we go home, and Janine and I have to get a moose costume. Pretty soon we realized that the Detroit Free Press had a consumer column. You know, one of those things where if you're having trouble with a contractor or a product, you write in and the newspaper will help you out. So what we did is that my mother sketched the head of the moose. She was an artist, so she drew the moose head. So we wrote a letter to the paper. We didn't hear for weeks, and we were sweating it. One day the letter arrives, and the editor of the Detroit Free Press said, we are thrilled with your letter. We're going to put it on the front page, and we're going to get you a moose head. In fact, the Schubert Theater in Detroit, the prop department, will make you a moose head. So I go down there a couple weeks later, pick it up, and please look on this 1970, whoever did these photage things are really cool. But in the 1970s, look on the lower left-hand corner is the original moose head. And honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. You know? It was paper mache, you know. I mean, this is the prop department at the Schubert Theater. You know. So we come back, and the girls, as we call them girls, they made me a nice brown outfit to fit me. But I tell you, it was a really two-edged sword. Because as soon as you put that moose head on, you find out two things. Number one, you get high on glue. But number two, you can only wear it for like 15 minutes because there's no ventilation, and it would soften and start to collapse. So we had to keep taking it off and shaking it, you know? So, like this one. Oh, how perfect. Now you know why I did the tours. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. We couldn't have planned it better. Actually, truth be known, that's the second set of antlers we've lost since we started this today. Todd has been very gracious, but his I bought extras, and I brought extras, and so we quickly. Todd, the reason your label's a little wonky is because I knocked the antler off when you were coming up. So, but fortunately, everybody's got new ones. You'll have them before you go home. So thank you. We're good. Tom, I think Jeff has your. Tell you what. You got it? Yeah. Okay. Tom, come up here and take a broken moose. And we're gonna come on up here for last time then, please. the founder of the feast, Tom Anthony, also a member of steering committee, and obviously a wonderful human being who, like the rest of you, has given more than you will ever receive and helped this organization grow significantly.
Well, Brad,
Please.
thanks for
Thank
all
you.
the time you put into putting this. You know, Brad must have spent. He interviewed all of us, you know, everybody in the steering committee for at least an hour prepping for today and envisioned all this, so it's wonderful. But, you know, MUSF was the best thing that ever happened to me. In a very personal way, Todd, you should help tell the story. So Susan and I met in English class in Upham Hall, and I wasn't nominated by a faculty member or something like everybody else was. Susan was, and she told me about it, and then I applied. So kind of got in the side door. We both went to grad school. I went off to law school at Case Western Reserve. Susan went to Michigan to get her master's, and we split up. And, you know, the stress of law school, time and all that. MUSF had a 5-year reunion in 1978. And we both, unknown to each other, came back. We're at a luncheon very similar to this, and Todd puts us together at the table. And we got married within a year. When we were getting started, I was asked to make a presentation to the Board of Trustees. I was scared to death. Mike and I went into Doug Wilson's office, and I said, what am I going to say to Board of Trustees? And I had written up a sort of a tagline, and it evolved into, in that meeting with Mike and Doug, a statement that said, MUSF is to enhance, promote, and develop the academic, cultural, and social aspects of Miami University. I said it there at the Board of Trustees. I said it 100 times later at the membership meetings, at the bike race, everywhere we went. And here we are today, we're all talking about those same principles, the same ideas that Doug had, that Mike instilled in all of us. So thank you so much. It's been a great 50 years. I can't wait for the 100th.
Thank you, Tom. Our last final award goes to an individual who's not a MUSF member, but without whose efforts what you see on the screen would probably never have taken place. Miami's University is not a Schwinn shop or a Raleigh manufacturer, and the MUSF folks from Doug Wilson on down contacted every manufacturer they could think of. Phone calls. I mean, you didn't have internet. You just couldn't go out and find me. No. And nobody was responding. The clock was ticking. We've made a commitment. We've got a race. Allah. Word finally reached a young man who you've heard mentioned today, Mr. Mike Beavis. Class of 70. A Fiji. Like Todd, fraternity brother. And Mike just happened to work up the road in Dayton, Huffman Manufacturing Company. And the rest is history. For 15 years, the first 15, MUSF benefited from the relationship with Huffy, all a result of this young man. Mike, please come on up here.
I guess a lot of you had things written down to say. This is a total surprise, but thank you very much. It's just an affair of the heart to be involved in, so I'm honored. I think Todd said serve and work and work and serve, and it is unique when the work, I guess, brings me back here to serve. So just an honor to be with each of you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. There is one group we would be remiss if we didn't recognize. And clearly, you can have the most talented students, you can have the best strategy, you can have all the support in the world from alumni and faculty, but if you don't have an advisor who can take the sum of the parts and inspire them in a way that the result is bigger than all of them combined, that's the benefit of what we've had here, advisors from MUSF, and we have a few of them here. Would you please stand as I read your name? Stephen Davis, please applause. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Marianne Blake Reinke, please. Is she here? Yes, right there. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Ray Mock. Ray, yes. Dana, where are you? Dana Whitebolt. Mark Macechko. Sarah Franklin. Okay. Well, have you had fun? Yeah. Good. We want to thank you all, obviously, for being here, making this special. The fun's going to continue. But at this point, we want to at least let you know that we've planned a few additional things here. You can stay and mingle. There is a photographer. Aaron, where are you? Right there. Just raise his hand in the center. You want pictures of friends, family, new friends? Aaron would be glad to take your photograph. If you are an advisor, we would love it. Amy, where would you like the advisors to? Right over here. If you're an advisor, please come. We'll get a group photo. And if you received an award today, if you would also please head over in this corner so we can get some photographs. We hope that you've rekindled some relationships, built some new ones. You know, Miami MUSF is such a wonderful example of what people can accomplish together. And I think it was just said by Ellen, pursuit of a lofty goal when nobody worries about who gets the credit. And everyone we've recognized and everyone else in this room who's been part of MUSF, you must leave your egos on the nightstand because the ego has never been a deterrent to getting the right things done. And, in our world today, we can't say that, but we sure can say it about what's been taking place here. In closing, I would like just to share the words of Doug Wilson. As we have grown to love the red bricks, the springs of magnolias and dogwoods, the autumns of red maples and golden oaks, so must we understand and encourage those who strive to be the best they very much can be, and through their accomplishments, reflect the glory of the Miami reputation. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.